Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. Happy Hump Day. Maybe you've been humping things since Monday when the Hawks won the draft lottery.
Right,
I know I've
gate.
been.
Love
yeah,
it.
right off the bat, right? Why
Right
not? We got a big show today. We're going to talk a lot of Connor Bedard, as we're going to do probably for the next, hopefully, 10 to 15 years. Right? Does that sound right for everybody?
That works.
Sounds good.
We've got some Blackhawks news to get to. We're going to welcome Regina Pats broadcaster Dante De
What'd you say?
Caria in the second half of the show. He's had a front row seat for Connor Bedard's games, and who better to scout him than a guy who called all the action for the Regina Pats. But let's start with some news and notes. But first, make sure you smash that like button on YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page. Make sure you are following us on our podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and a 5-star review will be greatly appreciated. And finally, give us a follow on Twitter at CHGO_Blackhawks. The news of today, the Blackhawks have signed Arvid Soderblom to a contract extension, 2 years with a $962,500 salary cap hit. You had the note, I believe, about the combined salary of the goaltenders coming up for Comesso and Soderblom when Mrazek's done.
That was not me.
Who was that, you?
That was me.
Get it all mixed up. You both look the same. You
Yeah,
got beards.
same guy.
Put me on the spot. I was like, I did
Beards are
what now?
beards. You know?
Yeah, so just kind of looking into the crystal ball and the optimistic chance that both Soderblom and Drew Comesso are on their way to reaching their potentials as goaltenders early in their careers. Both of them under $1 million. They would combine for under $2 million as a goaltending tandem heading into the 2024-25 season, which would bode well for the Blackhawks going into that season, knowing that summer is a pretty loaded free agency class. So again, it's just hypothetical potential. Who knows what's going to happen with both of those guys? But my initial reaction to Soderblom's extension was surprised it was just 2 years, and also surprised at the price. Like, it seemed like it was. I thought he would garner a little bit more, knowing kind of what the Blackhawks see him to be. But hey, it's a good deal for the team. It's kind of a early in his North American professional career, kind of a prove-it deal, because he had an opportunity to play at the NHL level last year, got the majority of starts with Rockford, was the number one option in Rockford, and their goaltender for the playoffs. And I think he played well at the AHL level. The numbers tell a different story at the NHL level, but I think he was put in a tough position and played as well as he could, given all the circumstances. But yeah, I mean, it's a good deal for him. I think it's good for the team, and it gives them some flexibility once the deal is over to kind of see where they're at. Maybe Comesso really does take a lot of steps really quickly. Like, that would be best case scenario. Or maybe, however things pan out over the next 2 summers, the next 2 seasons, maybe a free agent or an acquisition is made in net where that player becomes the starter. So who knows? It's good for flexibility. It's good for saving on money. It's a pretty fair deal, but I was pleasantly surprised at how fair it was on a team side of things.
Yeah, and he'll still be a restricted free agent at the end of this deal.
Mhm.
So that might have something to do with the 2 years where they're like, hey, if you're doing good, we'll pay you. And
Right.
they have the first right to refusal, so that's good. As you said, they're hoping by then, the end of that 2 years, you've got him and Comezzo firing at all four cylinders, all cylinders, and so we've seen in this Stanley Cup playoff. You're probably a good idea unless you have one of like the top 3 elite world goaltenders, and none of those guys are really playing anymore.
Yeah.
You better have 2 goalies.
Hey, the Hawks needed 2 goalies often in the
Yes.
playoffs. Where if Corey Crawford had a bad round, Scott Darling stepped in or whatever.
Ray
like
Emery?
it's
Remember when everybody
There
wanted
was-
Ray Emery
yeah,
to start
there
game
was a-
6 against Boston?
Yeah.
There was a legitimate discussion heading into that 2013 playoff run of do you go with Crawford or Emery? Like, it's not a bad thing to have that as an option.
You can never have too much goaltending.
What's interesting
Right.
because I think someone asked me last night on Twitter, like, what's the goaltending tandem going to be? And it's obviously Mrazek and Soderblom next year.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't shock me if at the end of the day Soderblom had more starts. If he just kind of take the Hawks have no great that Peter Mrazek's here. They got a first round pick to take him. They seem to like him. Good dude, was fine enough this year, but they're not tied to him anyway.
No.
There's no way he's going to be back. So if Soderblom takes the starter job, fine. They've got an expensive backup.
Yeah.
And you have Peter Mrazek, who's prone to injury.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
I mean, if Soderblom stays healthy and plays well, why not?
If there's a bet on the DraftKings Sportsbook app heading in the next season, which goalie will play the most games, Soderblom or Mrazek, I would put money on Soderblom.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that, A, what he does this year is far more important to the future of this franchise than what Mrazek does. And B, as you just mentioned, Mario, Mrazek, biggest problem the last 4 or 5 years is staying on the ice.
Yeah.
It seemed at least, 3 groin injuries this year, at least 2. It seemed that every time he was getting that hot streak,
Yeah.
the groins would say, hold on, big fella, we need a couple weeks off. So
Yeah, a goalie with susceptible groins is
it's
not
not
bad.
a good thing. No, you need your groins. I'm no goaltending coach, but you need your groins to be good at your job.
groins are helpful
In
for
hockey and
goaltenders.
life.
Yes.
Just to recap the numbers from last year, Soderblom had 15 games. He had a .894 save percentage and a .345 goals against. Not great,
Not great.
but he was on the Blackhawks. Peter Mrazek, .894, identical save percentage, .366 goals against, so a higher goals against. Obviously played a lot more. Goals saved above average was minus 12.5 for Mrazek, minus 4.6 for Soderblom. Adjusted goals against, 3.71 for Mrazek, 3.52 for Soderblom. So I think it's probably fair to say that right now, if the Hawks had a meaningful game to play, that Soderblom is probably the better goalie right now than Peter Mrazek. It might be close. It might be a toss-up.
Yeah,
But-
I think if you're saying it's an important game for next season, maybe I think maybe it's a Luke Richardson decision that he defers to the veteran. But I think moving forward, I mean, it all depends on how next season plays out. But I think the thought process is if you have 2 goalies who are putting out the same numbers, one's in their mid-30s, one's in their mid-20s, I think you probably roll with the guy who's in the mid-20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and our buddy Chris Dubiel says every organization almost needs 3 goalies.
Yeah, it can't
There's a
hurt.
couple. There's a couple out there right now that look at the Devils.
Yeah.
They can't figure it out. Then a little bit of that has to do to coaching. I don't know how you go back to Vanacek, who had been bad, and then hey, guess what? He was bad again. But the Hurricanes, they've had to roll 3 goalies in this playoff because Antti Ranta not dependable, Freddie Anderson not dependable.
Yeah.
So
It's just weird. We're in this era now of, aside from, like we mentioned, your Vasilevskis, your Shesterkins, your Hellebucks.
I think the goalies in the NHL, the way the skill positions matter more, and they're just like, we'll just score 5 goals a night if we have to. The goalie position in the NHL, I think, can be compared to the running back position in the NFL.
It's good. Yeah,
By
it's a good
committee.
comp. Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. Anybody who plays fantasy football knows. There's like 3 guys that are like the guy. Other than that, it's tandems. It's committees. It's 2 or 3 guys.
Or 1 or 2 guys come out of nowhere and have a hot season.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, no one knew who Akira Schmid was until 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
I mean, but it's funny, 10 years ago, if you saw a goalie with a save percentage,
In the
under 90, you're like, this guy sucks.
Right, yeah.
He's horrible, and it's just not the case anymore.
Scoring is up and save percentages are down. And
that's what the league wants.
That's what the league wants, yeah. I mean, it's
not what the coaches want, but that's what the league wants.
And it's funny. It's like, do you attribute it to, a change in how goalies are playing, or a change in how, shooters are adapting their skill set? I wouldn't know the science behind it, but it's just interesting to see, because it's not like in the NBA where it's just like, oh, scoring skyrocketed because defense changed.
Right.
It's in the NHL. It still comes down to someone has to shoot the puck and someone's there to try and stop the puck. So
I wonder if this trend we're seeing with goalies and how they're not everybody's going out there to try and get their Andrei Vasilevsky. Those are luxuries. I wonder if we're seeing that because of the recent trend of more analytical minds being added to front offices, where they're just saying, hey, the numbers say you can just get a replacement level guy and we'll be fine.
Right.
You're seeing more and more of that analytical side, the advanced stats, where they could just be like, don't spend the money in that position. You don't have to. We can win with replacement level guys if we have this, and this.
Yeah. I mean, you think back to of goalies who have stolen series. It doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to.
No.
You had Eddie Belfour get the Hawks to the Western Conference Final against the Avalanche by himself.
Yeah.
He was just making 50 saves a night and standing on his head. Too bad Patrick Waugh was at the other end. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know, aside from one here or there, Shesterkin's a good example of, he had this historically great year last year and really carried the Rangers, but they also had Kreider score 50 goals. They also had a bunch of guys have huge offensive years, so it wasn't just him. The days of just the goalie being the main reason for winning they're just gone.
Yeah.
They're just
You
over.
got to score.
Yeah.
Especially in the second round of this playoffs. You got to score.
Yeah.
And that's probably why the Islanders were trying to do the old school. Gee, weird. A Lou Lamoriello team was going to try to do old school.
Wow.
We're going to ride our stud goalie, and we're going to rely on scoring 2 goals a night. It just isn't going to work. Not against a team, any of those Eastern Conference teams. You got to be able to score today.
Yeah.
And good news for the Blackhawks. I think they're going to be able to score a little bit more coming down in the future.
It looks like that should be the case.
I think the goals per game average is going to be spiking upwards in the next couple of years.
Hope so.
NHL 23 sure seems to think the goals are coming. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But on the goaltending front, congratulations to Blackhawks goaltender Alex Stalock, who is a finalist for the Bill Masterton Trophy, along with Arizona's Clayton Keller and Pittsburgh's Chris Letang. Keller had the fractured femur back in March. Chris Letang had a stroke. As we know, he's had 2. And also his father passed away. And Stalock, as we know, dealt with the myocarditis after the long COVID. So those are your 3 finalists.
And 2 concussions during the year.
Yeah, all 3 of them certainly worthy of it. Obviously, we'll be rooting for Alex Stalock. I don't expect him to be back with the Hawks next year, but certainly made an impression in a short time on the 3 of us, and I think the fan base really kind of, on a year that was mostly kind of sucky, that was a guy everyone seemed to kind of embrace and really like.
Especially in that locker room.
Oh, yeah,
Those
for
guys
sure.
loved him. Everybody talked about him when he wasn't there. They talked about how much they missed him in the room. And when you're in the room and he comes walking in and he's yelling at guys and having a good time, you could see why. I mean, even in practice, you'll hear him, scream out some obscenities after everybody scores on him in practice. And just a fun guy, And, there was a fun moment in his exit interview where he came in dressed in the official uniform of Minnesota with his cargo pants and his fishing shirt and his camouflage hat, and kind of joke like, so what are you going to do this summer? Some fishing? Yeah, I might go fishing. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Good guy. It was great to see his success. It'd be interesting to see what happens to him going forward. If he, I think he played well enough while he was healthy to definitely have a team as I just said, I bet you there's a couple teams playing right now that wish they had Alex Stalock. Devils probably wouldn't mind having him right now. The Oilers might not mind having him back again. But it's up to him. He may take he may have some thinking on his fishing boat this summer. And, when he talked about how he was dealing with that ocular issue, how he had to lay on the couch and couldn't be a dad to his kids for a couple of weeks, how that really affected him more than missing hockey. When you hear stuff like that, then you start to thinking, maybe he's had enough of all this and he just wants to stay at home and be a dad, because he certainly looks like he does a great job with that. The kids were always around after games at practices, so we'll see what happens. But whatever he does, I'm a fan of his going forward.
For sure,
He's just a tremendous guy. Hopefully, somehow he comes back to Chicago, either maybe in the studio or maybe a CHGO correspondent.
Hey, maybe.
Get on that, Lawrence. Make that happen.
Never say never.
Yeah, I'm on that.
Thanks.
You'll have to get the dumb button ready, though. I mean, I know we don't.
Well, do we?
We don't discourage it, but the frequency that comes out of his mouth might be a little.
That's all right.
iffy.
I would love to have him.
Yeah, I mean, and he said in his exit interview, the opportunity to come to Chicago and play proved to himself again that he feels like he can still play in the NHL, and whether or not he wants to continue doing that, if that's maybe just some personal satisfaction on his last year playing in the league, that he felt like, what, I still belong here. Like that's a good way to go out, or maybe that's him convincing himself, like, what, physically I held up enough. On the ice, I was good enough. Like, why not go one more year, see what happens? Maybe, there's a team that thinks that they're contenders that needs someone like that, that offers him a deal. Who knows what'll be out there for him? But happy that he is getting this recognition. And I mean, we made jokes heading into the season that all those games that you needed to lose, you play Alex Stalock, and that was the absolute opposite of what he did this year. Like there were games where it was, big matchups, and Luke Richardson would turn to Stalock and say, we need a big performance in net, and he would be the guy that they would turn to try and get that. So it was a good story for him. So I'm happy to see him get the nomination, and hopefully he wins.
We got a couple super chats to get to. We've also got interesting trade proposition from our buddy Cam Robinson. But first, we're going to take our first break, and Greg's going to tell you about Shady Rays.
Yes, Shady Rays. Take on the sun with gear that is built to last. Our good pals over at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium Polaroid shades at an affordable price, as Mario is modeling for you. For those on YouTube, Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we worn. I disagree with that. They're even better. Our friends at Shady Rays are way too humble, but I will pump their tires for them. They are durable frames and extremely clear optics for any outdoor adventures you may have. And that's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements if you lose or break your pair. Even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after you purchase. Together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much needed support to nonprofit partners across the United States through Shady Rays Impact. They're doing everything from building play sets for pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS, the outdoor adventure of a lifetime. Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others just like it, now and for years to come. And if you don't love your Shady Rays, but you will, you can exchange for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's absolutely no risk when you shop. And speaking of shopping, exclusive for our lovely and beautiful CHGO listeners, Shady Rays is giving you the best deal of the season. Go to ShadyRays.com, use the promo code CHGO at checkout, and you're going to get 50% off all orders containing 2 or more pairs of their awesome polarized sunglasses. The more you buy, the more you save. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
That's a lot of people.
And
if those people...
I think we realized that Mario might have a side hustle.
Yeah.
He's got those model.
He does. The poses were down.
The poses, yeah.
He looked at the non-existent watch, a go-to model move. Love
absolutely.
it.
Good
Beautiful.
work.
Hey, and if once you got the sunglasses on, you might as well deck out the rest of your wardrobe, and you could do that at FOCO. Get fitted out in the best sports gear around, but it's not just clothes. They've got the hoodies, the shoes, the signs, bobbleheads, everything for your man cave or your she shed or your they room. I got nothing on that one. I'm trying to be inclusive.
That is nice.
Sure.
I'll work on that. Keep reading.
Yeah, let's work on that one.
Your favorite room in the house.
Yeah, there you go.
Say that.
There you go.
It's spring and it's baseball season. Get yourself an Aloha shirt, a straw hat, polos, bags, everything you need for a game. And if you look around our set here behind us, you can see all the stuff that FOCO has donated to our set. So thanks to them for that. Go to FOCO.com or click the link in the description below. For all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Again, that's FOCO.com, promo code CHGO for 10% off.
I am
Get
wearing
yourself
the
some cool
the
stuff.
FOCO banana hammock if you'd like to for me to
let's
model
save
that
for
as
the
well.
night show.
We're cool.
Wait for,
Maybe, I was going to
shirtless
say.
dark guy to come
shirtless
out
dark
and,
guy, yeah.
and shout him down.
All right.
You can be
There we go.
pantsless dart guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey.
You guys can form a new tag team.
Speaking of modeling good looks, I mean, Jay, that
yeah.
shirt looks fantastic.
that's a
And
good
Got the
Charlie.
new "Oh Captain, My Captain" shirt. Arrived as soon as I left for work yesterday, which would have been nice to have for our 24-hour CHGO Blackhawks sale, but that's okay. And thanks to everybody who took advantage of that, by the way. It went very well.
Yeah.
Want to get one of these for yourself or any CHGO merch? CHGOlocker.com. And remember, Die Hard save 20% all the time. Once you're a Die Hard, that's the benefits. You save a lot of money once you become a Die Hard. So before we get to the voice of the Regina Pats, Dante De Caria, our buddy Cam Robinson had an interesting thought today on Twitter that Mario
sure
found and tweeted. So,
Yeah, Cam was just saying that the Vancouver Canucks are a team that is looking to shed some money, and the Blackhawks are a team that have space for money to be shed upon them. And now with landing Connor Bedard, I know we talked about it with Kyle Davidson a little bit and how you don't want to deviate too much from the rebuilding plan that they have, but there is kind of that added responsibility of putting some quality players around Connor Bedard in his first few years to kind of make sure he's acclimated well enough to the NHL game. He had the thought that maybe a player from Vancouver like Connor Garland or Brock Besser could be one of those players that they shed to Chicago, and Chicago could even get an asset back for taking on those players. And to me, I thumbs up. Absolutely. Yeah, open to all options. Getting Connor Bedard, I don't think needs to change the plans dramatically, but it does open up a lot of options. It does open up Kyle Davidson to some potential creative moves that maybe if they landed at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 aren't on the table. So, hey, those are two players that I think are quality guys to play in a top 9, top 6 role. They'll probably be top 6 here. And Besser, like, he intrigues me because he seems like a guy who there's a lot of the tools there to be really freaking good. And maybe it's just, I know he's had a lot of off-ice things going on with his family and his father. Maybe it's a change of scenery, kind of reset needed for him. And I think out of those two, I would love to entertain the idea of Brock Besser being here.
So Besser, 26 years old, has 2 years left after this one at 6.65. Connor Garland has 3 years. He's 27 years old at 4.95. So both are certainly affordable for the Hawks. Both are wingers, so that would probably indicate that you think Bedard's a center.
Could be.
Or you can just play on the other wing, whatever you feel.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. I'm down with anything like this, but those two names specifically, those aren't your, like, bring in Peter Mrazek for some cap help and to gain an asset. You're trying to improve the team that way.
Yeah,
You're trying to make things better for Connor Bedard, and I think that makes a lot of sense. We also have a super chat about the Wild. This is from Thomas. He says, with Minnesota and Capella, is there anyone from them you'd think the Hawks should go after?
Minnesota's not as bad shape as you think. They're actually going to have about $12 million coming off the books. That's after Matt Boldy's extension kicks in. So they're going to get about $12 million in additional cap space.
Who's coming off the books for them? Is it Dumba?
Dumba's coming off the books. Klingberg. Let's see. Who else is a free agent? Gustav Nyquist, Oscar Sundquist, Ryan Reeves. Those are all coming off the books. And the majority of their main guys are locked in. Kaprizov's locked in. Eriksson Ek is locked in. Boldy's locked in. On the defense, you have Spurgeon. You got Brodin locked in. They're not in as bad shape as, yes, they're still going to have $14 million wrapped up in those ridiculous buyouts.
For next year and the following, yeah.
But they don't need a whole lot more. They've already re-signed Frederick Gaudreau. They've already re-signed Marcus Johansson. So even with those salaries going up, they still have about $12 million that they're going to get off the books. They're probably going to need to give Philip Gustafsson a little bit of a raise, but not that big of a raise because they still got Marc-Andre Fleury on the books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see anybody on their list that they would maybe want to move on from because, Matt Zuccarello, he's a free agent after next year. So that's another $6 million that coming off the books. Maybe they want to move him just because get something if they can't sign him. But he's been really good with Kaprizov, so I don't think you want to mess that up.
And they're not in a similar position to Vancouver. Like, they're contending.
Yeah.
Minnesota,
yeah, they were a playoff team this year.
Yeah.
They'll be contending for a playoff spot again next year. So I don't think Minnesota's in as bad. They're not in a great salary cap spot, but they're not. I don't think they're in desperation mode where they need to unload. Bill Guerin, to his credit, has navigated that very well so far. We'll see how that goes.
Well, you're taking your shot. They know that their window is now, and they only got maybe 2-3 years left to take a crack at getting a Stanley Cup. But for them, their problem is they can afford what they have, but they can't afford to upgrade very much.
Not much.
So if it's going to happen with the Wild, it's going to have to kind of happen with what they've already got.
Based on the guys you've given long-term deals to, those are the guys they've identified. So
sure. But they're not going to be able to bring in their Marian Hossa or their final piece of the puzzle. For me, the Garland Besser thing makes all the sense in the world because, look, maybe like you said, if it was somebody else, 2, 3, 4, 5, they landed in the draft, they're still maybe 2-3 years out of the NHL. You're still in that mode of like, all right, what's some salary we can take for some more assets? But I do feel like there is a bit of an obligation to give Bedard someone he can play with that is truly NHL experienced and ready. Maybe it's Max Domi. It could be Max Domi. That's just a free agent signing, right? You've got Tyler Johnson on the team. Do you want him as your number one center? Probably not. Cole Gutman's going to make the team, but again, probably not. So this is the sort of thing, if I'm Kyle Davidson, that I'm looking at. Is guys young, I mentioned it yesterday, not Kirby Doc, but something like that, where it's a young player looking for a fresh start somewhere. And I'd be willing, with all the draft capital the Hawks have accrued, I'd give up a second-round pick for a Connor Garland or a Brock Besser or somebody like that, or a second-round pick plus whatever it might be. Or maybe, I don't know if I would give up 19 for one of those guys, but
I wouldn't.
No, because you're not.
Unless you're getting them in a second or something like that.
And they're desperate. They're not.
Yeah, they're not the one trying to get something out of you.
Vancouver has no leverage in that deal.
Right.
We're on the other side of that for a change.
Well, maybe the Coyotes can take on Oliver Ekman-Larsson for the next 4 years for them and bail
Isn't
them out.
that where he came from?
Yeah, they signed that deal. Might as well.
$7.26 million until 2026-27.
Oosh.
So if they can move that, they help themselves a lot. That's an injured reserve right now, but
I don't know how many teams really want to bring that on.
Well, there's one.
Sure.
Coyotes always do it.
They could be open to it.
You got to wait till he physically can't play anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You couldn't possibly have a good player play for you.
No.
Yeah.
Only in NHL 23 can those players still actively play.
I do appreciate that they toned them down, though, a little bit.
Yeah. There was in NHL 21, I traded for Marian Hossa and he was like a 70 overall, and I put him on my AHL team, and they won the Calder Cup.
There you go. Veteran presence.
So that was fun.
Christian A says Timo Meyer. I like that idea, but Timo Meyer is a restricted free agent, so it's not someone you could just sign like a UFA. So you'd have to trade for him. That's going to cost you.
And
trade
that's
for
one
his
of those.
rights.
And that's one of those players that, like, if you're bringing him in, like that, I said it earlier this week, like that's like a 6 or 7 year deal.
It's a $10 million qualifying offer.
Yeah, that's.
So I was talking to
big.
Greg before you got in, Mario, and I was saying maybe you do something like that instead of Austin Matthews or Leon Draisaitl, because when those guys are available, you're going to have to pay them max deals, which at that point could be 13 something, maybe 14 million, and you're going to have to resign Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a max deal too.
Sure.
So maybe you're better off getting like the tier below the absolute best players in the league.
Yeah, maybe. But I think then if you're going to, qualifying offers and offer sheets in that territory, then you're risking giving up compensation for that.
Right.
Whereas those other players, you might just be able to sign without giving up anything. Or using those picks that you would have to give up as other currency in other trades or anything like that. So I don't think it's an option off the table, but I think Kyle Davidson has put a lot of emphasis on having those picks and those assets for multiple reasons. So I don't know. I think if the option is there to sign a player like that without having to give anything up, that might be the better route. But that's just me.
By the way, if you are thinking offer sheet Timo Meyer, it would cost the Blackhawks 2 firsts, a second, and a third. That's if it's for under $10.5 million or lower. If it's over $10.5 million, it'd be 4 first-round picks.
Not interested.
Yeah, no.
For
There's
Timo
other
Meyer.
ways to
Not
do
interested.
it. Yeah, you
Not
can
for
find
Timo
ways.
I'm not
Meyer.
interested in giving up that second first-round pick this year. Like, they're not in the position for that right now. Like,
The prospect system, as much as it has improved, still needs padding.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't, unless there's something out there that just blows your mind. I'm not looking to move that. Like, I would move that pick and maybe a second rounder to move up in the first round to grab another guy.
Sure.
Like if
Mitchkov falls.
remember we talked about with this exact scenario. Say you get number 1 overall and Mitchkov falls, and you could package something and draft both Bedard and Mitchkov in the same draft. Like if it gets to 10 and he's still out there,
Trade up.
make some phone calls.
Yeah.
Give that 19 and one of your second and maybe one of your thirds to move up to get Mitchkov.
Sure.
I'm
Why
all
not?
for that.
Yeah, why not?
But I'm not trading that pick for a veteran guy because next year's not about winning.
Right.
And I know you want some NHL talent around Bedard, but you can get it elsewhere.
Just sign Max Domi.
You can get it elsewhere without
Yeah.
giving up the 19th
If
or
they-
maybe 18th overall pick. We'll maybe find out later tonight.
If they were to sign Max Domi in free agency and do this hypothetical that Cam brought up, either bring in Besser or Garland in some sort of deal. If you bring in Domi and one of those two to bolster your top 6, like that's pretty darn good. On top of having Lucas Reichel available, Tyler Johnson, Taylor Radish, like that's not so bad for Bedard to play with. So and to also not be like, deviating completely from the plan and saying we're throwing all our chips in now. So yeah, I think there's ways to do it without having to go overboard.
Jesus.
Yep.
I am
got a
just
call?
buzzing all over the place.
Got a phone call?
Trying to silence it. I don't know why it's going off.
Mr.
Very
Important
annoying.
over here.
I guess so. Should we get to the EA Sports thing? Do we have any more super chats, first of all?
That one on screen.
We have a super chat from Nick here. It says, really think people are overlooking Bedsy being number 1 center. Bedsy. Is that his nickname?
Do we know? Yeah. Do we know the nickname?
We
I
can
was
ask
curious
Dante
about this.
Yes.
the official nickname.
Okay.
But Bedsy is
That's one of my biggest questions.
Bedsy is very hockey.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of people.
It's very hockey.
Seeing a lot of people, not in just today's chat, but in
Other chats recently.
wanting to sign Tyler Bertuzzi. No, I don't want that.
I
I know we
don't
said
think
that
so.
last year about Max Domi, but I don't think you're going to get – he's going to command a big salary based on what he did in the playoffs and what he did for Boston. And he is far closer to a confirmed Pudwack than Max Domi ever was.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I mean, I don't know if I want to touch that, especially if he's going to command a $6 or $7 million salary, which he very he might. I'd rather have Max Domi at 5 than Tyler Bertuzzi at 7.
Yeah.
6.
And I mean, Bertuzzi's probably the better player, but I don't want the baggage. Like, yeah.
You're building this culture on character, and I just don't know if he fits that. I could be wrong. I was wrong about Max Domi.
yeah.
I don't know if I'm wrong about Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah, we've got some evidence.
If he was so great at that age, why did Detroit, a team that's on the rise, trade him?
It's a very good question.
That is a good question. All right. We're not tired of talking about Connor Bedard. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
So right now we are going to welcome in the voice of the Regina Pats. It is Dante De Caria. Dante, thanks for taking time for us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Happy to, I guess, be on the other side of the border.
There you go. So, all right, the first question is, what is the nickname? Is it Bedsy? People are wondering, what do the teammates call Connor Bedard?
Yeah, I call him Bedsy. His
Bedsy.
teammates call him Bedsy. Dards is another one. I think those are kind of the two that kind of come to mind. Sometimes I'll say 9'8". Yeah, I think those are kind of the three that kind of come to mind. Or I'll just say Connor.
Yeah, boy, hockey players, it's no lack of creativity when it comes to nicknames. It's always they always spend a lot of time building that up.
It works. It works.
All right, well, no one had a better seat for Connor Bedard's season last year than you. So, I mean, look, we know the hype is real, but tell us, what was it like to watch that kid play?
You know what? It was a pleasure to watch him play. I still have to pinch myself. I was pinching myself over the course of the season. I think around the 25 games left in the season mark, I was like, okay, I'm going to count every single one of them, right? Because it was just going to be special that I'll never have an opportunity to see this player again unless I eventually move up the ranks and call games in the NHL, which is obviously my hopes and dreams. But it was just a pleasure, not just to watch him on the ice, but to deal with him on the ice. I'm happy to call him a friend, somebody that, we share a lot of similar interests with. He's a very hardworking individual. He's a kind person. He's somebody that treats everybody with the utmost respect. Just an unbelievable guy. I've been working in sports for, I think, 8 or 9 years now, and I've done everything from pro baseball to, junior hockey at the major junior level and the junior A level, and I've never dealt with a better person than Connor Bedard. And it's kind of interesting that I say that because I've dealt with, I hate to say it, but lesser athletes in terms of the hype and all of the attention that those specific players get. And, you do get maybe a little bit of attitudes, you get some, cockiness and stuff like that. Never with Connor Bedard, never at all. He treated everybody with the utmost respect, whether it was just the staff here at the office, myself, the coaching staff, our fans, his teammates, the janitor. It didn't matter who it was. This is a guy that's bred to be a star player, a marketable player in the NHL, and Chicago is getting a good one.
Something that has been suggested in the exterior outside of Chicago hockey community is that Bedard would actually decline playing for the Blackhawks. That doesn't seem like his character, right?
No, I don't know where that came from. There were a couple of questions throughout the media.
Internet.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. The internet is good, sometimes bad, right? I'm not a big social media guy. In fact, Connor's not a big social media guy at all. He doesn't have TikTok. He doesn't use Twitter. He rarely uses Instagram. This is somebody that if you're around him, you never see him on his phone, ever. He's not a big social media guy, so I thought I'd throw that in. But no, I think he's happy to play for any organization and any franchise, and I really do believe that from the bottom of his heart and from the bottom of my heart, saying this with you guys today. His dream has been to play in the NHL. He's a hockey nut. He loves hockey. There was that report the other day that he was on the night of the lottery, was playing street hockey with kids outside. That's Connor. That's just the guy he is. It's just incredible on how he's been raised by Melanie and Tom. Just fantastic people. I'd consider Melanie a saint. Tom's one of the hardest working men you'll ever meet, and his older sister Maddie has a very bright career and life ahead of her. Fantastic young lady, just a great family. And he was getting some questions throughout the year. Are you going to pull Lindros? Is that something you've thought about? And he kind of laughed well, of course not.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
None of us here took any of that seriously. I mean, that's just people mad that he's not going to be playing for their favorite team. Kyle Davidson, the general manager here, he's trying to build a winning culture. Head coach Luke Richardson and high character guys have been a target of his. Obviously, it sounds like Connor fits that bill perfectly. But speaking of fitting bill on the ice, do you see him staying in the middle at the NHL level? Do you think he's going to be a career center, or will he be better off on the wing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not entirely sure. I've heard, various different scouts, just being from, coming to watch the Pats play over the last 2 years, compare him to maybe a Patrick Kane or a Kucherov. I've heard a couple of scouts say that in my time with the Pats the last 2 years. So maybe that's a strong comparison, but he is going to be somebody that people are going to be comparing players in the future to him. So I wouldn't go as far as comparing him to a Kucherov or a Kane, because I think he's just going to be his own player rather than just saying, yeah, he's just like this guy or he's just like that guy. But I think it's really going to come down to how hard he works. And I have no doubt that he will work extremely hard to play a two-way game up the middle. This is somebody that is very close friends with Matt Barzal. They train together during the offseason, and Barzal is a pretty good 200-foot center. So if Connor, continues to train with guys like Barzal and Crosby and McDavid and so on and so forth, then I have no doubt in my mind that he will be able to stay at the center ice position. I hate when people talk about his size. Yeah, he's 5'10", right? But this guy is built like an ox. Like, his thighs are massive. His arms, you can see the veins popping out, and he's not even flexing. And he's like around 190 pounds at 5'10". He's just built differently. This guy trains hard every single day. He does not take a minute, an hour off. One of the hardest guys I've ever met in hardest working guys I've ever worked with or met in my entire life.
It's funny you mentioned the character, because it's something that we've heard repeatedly. We talked to Colton Dawkin, Kevin Korchinski, and Nolan Allen from the Seattle Thunderbirds, all Blackhawks prospects, and they all had the same thing to say about their experience with him at World Juniors. Was like, well, yeah, I mean, obviously he's great, but he's this great teammate. And Doc said when his shoulder was hurt, he came and checked on him and all those sort of things. I think that is such an important thing, because for a kid to step in day one with the expectations he's going to have and all the focus he's going to have that good of a head on his shoulders has to make Hawks fans feel good. And it's great to hear that even as he's come and crushed every expectation that he's had up to now, he has still been able to keep that level head about him.
Yeah, I'm happy you asked that question, and maybe I won't get into specific stories, and I'll try to maybe, talk about a couple of examples with me of the last 2 years with Connor. Connor was always somebody that even if I was feeling down or he saw there was something up with me, he would check on me, and I'm just the broadcaster and the comms guy, right? Like, that's just the kind of guy he is. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, he's just built differently. He's raised the right way. And you guys can consider the right way whatever you want to consider it. A lot of people have different opinions, but in my opinion, that is the right way. And, there was something earlier in the year with myself, just to kind of use my experiences and my examples, to kind of answer that question, just like Colton Korchinski probably did with you guys. And that was, I got in a little bit of not a car accident, but I backed my truck into our assistant coach, or my car into our assistant coach's truck. And I was really down and upset about it. I wasn't paying attention, and I had to get a new bumper and stuff like that. And I went to the rink, and I was really down, and he saw that I was down, and a lot of the guys were kind of giving me a hard time about it and stuff like that. And he came up right behind me, put his hand on my shoulder, and said, "Dante, it's not a big deal. It's just a small, it's a small scratch. It's not a scratch, but something along the lines of that." He just said, "Brush it off, and you didn't get in a big accident or anything. You're all right, and it's all good. Just forget about it. And these things like fixing a car or something like that, or fixing a phone, they can be fixed." And to me, that's really mature of a 17-year-old to think that way, because I'm 25 and I wasn't even thinking that way, right? Just kind of a little example of just the kind of guy he is. And there were certain examples with myself or teammates or staff, people around the rink that he was always checking in on. Like, when he asked you when you came to the rink on a day-to-day basis how you're doing, like, he actually means it. Like, he's not just asking it just to ask it to make himself look good. Like, he actually truly means it from the bottom of his heart. And that just explains a lot about his character, right? Like, kind of get lost for words when I talk about these things. I do have a lot more examples that I'll kind of keep in-house, but that was just kind of one that I thought I'd share with you guys today.
How does he lead on the ice? We had during the Blackhawks dynasty, Jonathan Toews was kind of the quiet lead by example guy. Same with Marian Hossa, where Brent Seabrook was more of the vocal, like rah-rah guy. What is Connor Bedard's leadership style?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I thought about it a lot. I don't think I have like a clear answer because I'm not in the room. Like after a certain point, I'm upstairs in the booth getting ready and stuff like that. So I'm not really in the dressing room when it comes to that stuff. As far as, practices and stuff like that, he's a very positive guy. And yeah, you know what? I think he would lead by example. Again, I don't know if I can answer the question as far as, what he says in the dressing room in between periods and after the game. I know he's very intense. He's very competitive. He's somebody that, wants everybody to work just as hard as he does, because that's what he expects of everyone else. And he wants everybody to be great. And he wants all of his teammates to succeed. He's not about his own statistics. He's about everyone else around him. He's more excited when a player on our team scores his first career goal after 2 years without a goal than when he scores number 70, right? So it's very interesting. I'm not entirely sure what kind of a leader he is in the dressing room, but as far as, what I've seen at practice and off the ice and on the bus and in the hotels, he's somebody that kind of goes about his business by leading by example. I can kind of maybe list an example being his post-game cool down or his pre-game training routine. A lot of guys started to really pick up on what he was doing, and everybody was kind of just like copying him. It started off with like one or two guys doing it with him, and then like all of a sudden like half the team was doing the same cool down as him, which is kind of funny because he takes his time after the game. He likes to really cool down. He takes care of his body, and instead of the bus waiting for one individual, we were waiting for like 10 or 12 guys, which myself and the coaching staff would always kind of laugh about. You look, and half the bus at the start of the season was full. Half the bus at the end of the season was empty, and we were just waiting for a couple of guys. And sure enough, you turn around the corner, and there's Connor with like 6 or 7 guys doing the exact same thing as him.
It's funny you mentioned him not being concerned about his stats. There's a video that made it across my timeline last night, and I'll try to find it for a later show. But he's told that he broke a record, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I really wasn't. I didn't know that, but I'm more worried about the game. We got a good period. We got 40 minutes ahead of us. Like it didn't even. He shattered. I don't know if it was Lindros's record or somebody's record. That was like one of those unbreakable things. And he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. I don't." It like didn't even dawn on him that had happened. There was just no concern from him at all. So that sort of reflects the stories you're telling us, Dante.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think you're probably alluding to the World Juniors records that he broke. Like he broke a lot.
That's what it was.
Records. So, I think it was the points record. Anyways, there were a lot. I've kind of lost count on all of them. But yeah, that's just the kind of guy he is. Like he's not about himself. He's about winning team awards. And hopefully he can bring a Stanley Cup back to Chicago. Obviously, that would be really awesome for the city. You guys have had your 3 cups already, of course, with Kane and Toews and Sharp and Seabrook and Keith and Joel Quenneville is the head coach. In fact, one of my close friends' uncles is actually Joel Quenneville. I'm good friends with that family, and it'd be nice to kind of see them progress. Obviously under Connor after, having a little bit of a connection to that organization with the family. So that's kind of a neat tidbit. And I also know Chris Foster's as well, who's the voice of the Blackhawks. I worked with him 2018. So a couple little connections for myself, but you know what? He's just a guy that, wants to win cups. I think he's going to care more about winning those Stanley Cups and those rings rather than, the individual awards, whether it's the Hart, whether it's the Ted Lindsay or whatever, right? Like that's just how he's built. He loves team success rather than individual success.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as much of excitement as we've all had and Blackhawks fans have all had to see him play. I think getting that perspective of who he is as a player off the ice and as a person is really awesome. Dante, I want to ask, that obviously it was a really exciting season to see him play. Is there a game or a performance that stuck out to you this year that really, like, for Connor on the ice, that really was one of your most fun to call this year?
Yeah, you know what? There were a few playoff ones that were just absolutely unbelievable. I could think to all the games since he came back from the World Juniors, but there's just so many. I don't think there's one that I can kind of like think of off the top of my head. I think the last game that he played is probably the one that I remember the most because it's the last time that we'll see him in the Western Hockey League and the last time that we'll see this generational player in a Regina Pats uniform. So that's kind of the one that I always think back to because he put his heart and soul into putting this team on his back and trying to win. Like he was playing every second shift. I don't know what the ice time was in Game 7, but he might have played like 37 minutes. Like every second shift. Like so, one line would go on, and then he would double shift with another line, and then go off, and then double shift with another line. So he was essentially playing on the first, and the third line, sometimes the second, and then the fourth line. Just unbelievable. Like.
My gosh.
That's how conditioned he is, though, right? Like
Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
well he keeps himself in shape. There was a little bit of fatigue. I could see it. I'd say Game 6 was probably the most determination I've ever seen from any player in my entire career. I think some of the coaching staff would agree with that as well, including maybe John Paddock. I know it was Brad Haroff who talked about it in the post-game show after Game 6. But after Game 6, I was worried, but I had a gut feeling that he didn't have anything left in the tank for Game 7, just because, it's not basketball. You can't win with one guy, right? And, the Saskatoon Blades had a lot more depth than the Regina Pats, and, they moved on to the next round and then the round after that before being swept by the Winnipeg Ice. But, yeah, he had some pretty big, memorable games. You look at the 6-point game against Calgary, a day or 3 or 2 days after winning the World Junior Championship. He didn't want to take any time off. He wanted to play, in fact, the next day, getting off the plane late and showing up to the rink at 5:00. And he said, all right, let me get my gear on. Let me go out there and play. So, he doesn't take a practice off either, guys. Like, this is a guy who anytime the coaching staff had to tell him that he wasn't allowed to skate that day due to whether it was something that he was nursing or maybe he was sick or he needed some rest because he plays so many minutes. Like it was like I can't even describe his face. I can't even describe the feeling that he was going through because that's how much he wanted to practice. And this is a guy, say practice is from 2 to 3 or 2 to 2:45. He would stay on until 4:00 because the ice is done at 4. And we would myself, the equipment staff, the coaching staff, whoever was there would have to stand on the bench and literally go with our hand and yell at him like, okay, it's time to go. We want to go home. We're done at 4:30. You got to be out of the room by 4:30. And he's just like, yeah, 15 more minutes. And guys would stay out with him. And there was kind of something funny. I think it was at the end of practice. I was standing on the bench and Alexander Suzdalev steps off the ice and Connor comes up to him. He goes, where are you going? And he's like, to the room. I'm done. He's looking at the clock and he's just like, Alex, it's only 3:15. He's just like, yeah, I'm done. He's like, you can't go just yet. We got to go another 15 minutes at least. Something like that. He said something like that. And he was I don't remember the exact words, so don't quote me on this, but it was something on the lines of that. And then Alex was like, all right, I'll stay on. I'll shoot with you more.
I guess I have to now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That sounds very, a lot of what people said that played with Jonathan Toews was, if that guy is going to be the hardest working guy in the team, what is my excuse? Right? And that's that leadership by example is I'm out here working. I'm out here till the last possible minute. I'm playing 35 minutes a night. Let's go. There's no one on this team that shouldn't work as hard as I do. That's great. Dante, very exciting stuff. We love that you were able to jump on with us. Maybe we'll catch up again throughout the summer, and you can just regale us with Connor Bedard stories because we can't get enough of them.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. Have a good day.
All right, thanks you.
Dante.
That is Dante De Caria, voice of the Regina Pats.
I can't wait for training camp.
Oh my God!
Let's get the prospect camp here, and that's going to be the Connor Bedard show. In those drills,
hey,
it's gonna be crazy. The Fifth Third Arena is gonna be
we're gonna have to get there early.
Seriously,
to park.
we're gonna park.
We're just gonna have to get there at 7 a.m. for 10 a.m. practice.
Yeah.
It's gonna be crazy.
I cannot wait.
All those videos. Remember, every year you would see the videos of Montreal and Toronto, their prospect camp. They're
gonna have it at the UC.
They might.
They might have to. And they might even sell tickets.
Got to pay them eventually. Might as well.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right, before we wrap up, we've got some very exciting EA Sports simulations to report on. But first, we're going to take a little bit of a break before we give you that info.
It is beautiful weather
Yes.
today. Like, absolutely.
Bottle this up.
A perfect day. I would take this weather 365 days a year.
You'll have to move to San Diego, but that's fine.
Okay, well, whatever. The reason that it is perfect is that you can get out on the golf course today, and if you have this all year, you could golf 365 days a year in your Pins and Aces gear. Pins and Aces, the official golf apparel partner of us here at CHGO and of the All-City Network. They have tons of amazing apparel and gear that'll get you tons of compliments out on the golf course. Anything from polos, hats, golf bags, lightweight hoodies, pants, shorts, belts, pin markers. Trying to think of every golf tees.
I got my Chubbs
They got
Peterson ball marker.
Chubbs
I love
Peterson ball marker.
It's like the wooden hand.
Yeah.
Beef
Great.
sleeves.
And of
Beer sleeves.
course, the beef/beer sleeve, the product that allows you to store
It's just one letter difference.
up to, yeah, it's true.
I mentioned that on the Bears podcast today, and the chat didn't quite get what the hell that meant. And
Well, they should watch our show.
yeah,
Miss a little, miss a lot. Come over
There
to
you go.
CHGO Blackhawks.
We're the show with him now.
Yes.
exactly.
Him is a
Hey.
Blackhawk, not a Bear.
H1M,
about that?
yeah.
Yes, the beer/beef sleeve. Should we call it? What's a good combo for that?
Beerf.
The beer
beer
sleeve.
Just call it the Chicago sleeve.
I mean, I'll
the
take a
beer
combo
sleeve.
sleeve personally. Give me the combo.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
combo.
The combo sleeve. You can store up to 7 beers or 4 beefs, 4 standard beefs,
4 or 5.
4
Couple
or 5.
2-3.
Depends on how depends on how
4 sandwiges
how packed you
with
want it to
room
be.
for a small jar of Giardinera.
There you go.
There you go. And you can keep that sleeve inside your golf bag, and it'll keep your drinks cold the entire round, or your beefs warm for a few hours. Pretty good snack in between the first 9 and the back 9. So check out pinsandaces.com. When you do use the promo code CHGO, you're going to receive 15% off of your first order and get free shipping when you do. Again, that's pinsandaces.com with the promo code CHGO.
And I have been giving the old Fubo TV an absolute workout here over the last few weeks with the NHL playoffs, with the Cubs on marquee, whatever national sports are going on. I've got the multi-view going. It is absolutely awesome. 140 plus live channels of sports, shows, movies, and news. You can stream live TV from any device. You can watch the most Chicago sports for the lowest price. Start watching immediately with a 7-day free trial. Go to FuboTV.com/CHGO. There's no contract. There's no cable. There's no hassle. Just sign up and start watching. You get 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included at no extra charge. You can watch your local teams while traveling. The PGA Championship is here. The French Open. The WNBA is getting underway. The NHL Draft coming up very soon. NHL, NBA playoffs. And, of course, if you're a Chicago baseball fan, you can watch the White Sox on NBC Sports Chicago and the Cubs on Marquee. Fubo is the only streaming service with Marquee Sports Network. So watch the most Chicago sports with Fubo TV. Use the link in the description to sign up for 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. Go to FuboTV.com/CHGO. Nick says, when is training camp? Here are the days you need to know. The draft is the 28th and 29th. Development camp at Fifth Third for now is June 30th through July 6th.
Oh, so they go directly into
Directly to camp.
Directly into prospect camp.
All
right.
Rookie camp, September 13th through 17th. And then officially training camp begins on September 21st. So mark those dates
I believe that
down.
rookie camp is actually in St. Paul, Minnesota.
The Tom
Yes,
Curvers.
St. Paul. Yep.
That is in Minnesota this year. Yep.
So
We
won't get to smell your stinky prospect this year.
Well, we can go.
we can still.
I mean, rookie camp is trip worthy.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it definitely is now. We might need to change some travel plans depending on prospect camp, right? If it's the next day.
Yeah, we have to come home early. Good thing we're driving.
Were you guys planning to do a bachelorette party in Nashville? afterwards?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Exactly what we were doing.
Yeah. Good call.
We'll see.
Honky tonk.
Yeah, we got to get
What
back
did
for
it say?
that.
It's July 1st?
No, June 30th.
30th.
The next day after the draft.
Yeah. Crazy.
All right.
We'll see. Well, we'll see. They just could have that blocked off and see what they do. I don't know. We'll wait. But,
Something to keep in mind.
yeah, I mean, if we got to drive through tonight to see Connor Bedard, we will.
Probably.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, before we wrap up, we've been teasing it the whole show. EA Sports today published their career predictions for Connor Bedard, and, well,
It's pretty good.
I'll take it.
no pressure, kid, but you're going to be the 4th leading scorer of all time. They've got him down for 1,400 and I can't read that. I'm too old. 55 games played, 739 goals, 1,145 assists. That's 1,184 points. 3 points behind Mark Messier for 4th all time. He's got a Calder, 4 Hart trophies, 4 Ted Lindsays, 2 Rocket Richards, and most importantly, 3 Stanley Cups.
Oh,
That's
boy.
Hey,
Wow.
that's pretty freaking good.
Well, you say 4th. He might actually be, 4th, maybe 5th, because Connor McDavid's probably going to pass Messier when this is done.
Sure.
I would imagine so.
But yes,
Yes.
that's
For-
pretty darn good. Right?
For historical context, there have been 3 players to win NHL MVP 4 times or more. Eddie Shore, Gordie Howe, and Wayne Gretzky. And only 4 players have reached the 1,800-point plateau. Gretzky, Jagr, Messier, and Gordie Howe.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking
That is
legends of the game.
That is Mount Rushmore territory.
Except according to the slap shot when you said Eddie Shore. Piss
on Eddie
on Eddie Shore. Piss on old time hockey. That's the first thing that jumped in my head.
Of course.
Every
No
time I
f-
hear that name.
No offense to the Shore family.
No.
Just to temper expectations, they did the same thing with Alexis Lafreniere, and they predicted 1,663 points in 1,582 games, 2
not as
Stanley
good.
Cups, a Lindsay, a Hart, and a Calder for him, too.
Still
So
may pan out.
That's
he's
not
got
as-
some work to do.
It's not as good.
He's got some work to
Well,
do.
when he's Connor Bedard's teammate, because everybody has him getting traded here anyway, maybe those numbers will start to come to fruition.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I
2
was-
is better than 1.
There's a reason it's a video game.
Yeah, and I agree. Kalen says, keep Bedard out of that rookie camp. Someone always seems to get hurt during that Curvers prospect tournament. I
true.
100% agree with
Actually,
that.
yeah, that's
There's
true.
no reason to put Connor Bedard in that rookie tournament.
No.
And let some guys that are going to play 4th line for the Iowa Wild take cheap shots at him? No, thanks.
And you know there's some putt on the Iowa Wild wanting to make
Yeah,
a name
the
for
That'd be-
himself.
Stinky
Yeah.
cheesy guy.
Stinky guy.
Yeah.
Sam Hentages.
No thanks. We've seen it, been there, done that.
Yeah,
Kirby
we don't
Doc
need that.
got hurt in that a couple
Like, what's
years
he gonna
ago.
gain
Kirby
from
and
it?
Colton both got hurt.
Yeah,
in that,
so
that
there's
tournament.
no reason.
Reichel got hurt.
Yeah. Forget it. Like, I wouldn't even do that tournament, period.
Well, yeah, because you got, Pudwacks that are trying to get on the 4th line of the Iowa Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, there's no way Connor Bedard plays in that.
I hope they go back to a multi-team
Like the
little
like
thing,
the,
like
Red
they used to do in
Wings
in Traverse City.
Traverse City,
Yeah,
yeah.
because now you also get the familiarity thing where they're annoyed with each other after a couple days.
Right.
So you're taking more
So then
cheap
that,
shots.
That
like
second
just-
game gets chippy. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason to put Bedard out there. You know what you're getting in him, and I'd rather have him back here getting ready for NHL camp and to make his NHL debut,
Well, we'll see what
as
happens.
opposed to just clowning some guys who are gonna be driving Ubers in a couple of weeks.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap things up. We're back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Reminder, we are presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. We'll talk to you Thursday at 2 p.m. with more Connor Bedard content on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.